He locked his door and he's smiling. He's laughing. THIBS, I know you, man. I know you. He was like, yeah.
You think he's happy with what happened today?
Yeah. THIBS like me. He likes confrontation.
So good. Welcome back to The Jump. Having little updates on the Jimmy Butler story. The Athletic first reporting Jimmy held a players-only meeting today. Jimmy confirmed that to me just a few minutes ago, and he was emphasizing the meeting was really to make clear to his teammates his issue is with management, not with them. And management, in this case, means also his coach, because I'm not only a client, I'm an owner. It is Coach Tom Thibodeau, and we're showing pictures of you right now because you also know the pressure that comes with the dual roles of head coach and team president. You mentioned it a little bit before the break. What are sort of, every situation has advantages and disadvantages. Anyone colors something as like, that's great, that's awful, that they've never held a job before. So tell us sort of how it impacted your role with the Pistons.
Well, there are things that are tough with it, right? But in this case with Tom, like I was saying to you, I think it's a real advantage. He's got his finger on the pulse of that team. He knows. He's not just close to it. He's right there inside of it. He's going to know as times go along if this just isn't going to work, the chemistry's not good, or if this is something that can get fixed. I think that's the biggest advantage of the job. The biggest problem is you lose objectivity and you get focused on the present much more than the future, because when you're a coach, let's face it, you want to win the next game.
Sure.
That's what you want to do, the next game. So you need a Scott Layden, or I had Jeff Bauer, and when Pop was doing it, he had R.C. Buford to give you a little longer view and help you keep perspective.
I mean, the biggest thing that sort of impacted that when you were at the Pistons is the Blake Griffin trade, right? That's the biggest trade, and sort of how did that impact your coach hat versus your president hat?
Well, that was an easy one for both reasons, and everybody in our organization, from the owner on down, was all in on making that move for Blake. We thought it would help in the near term. In reality, we thought it would help more in this year, this year we're in right now, and next year than we did last year, because when you make those deals, you never know how it's going to go in the short term. You know, people have got to get on the same page quickly. So it was really made for the next couple of years.
Coach, I want to ask you, because part of this story isn't just whether THIBS wants to do it or not, is that it's a directive from ownership. And so when you have ownership breathing down your neck, for lack of a bit, how do you manage that? Because it's hard enough for presidents and general managers to do that on a day-to-day basis. But when you also have the burden of also coaching the team, how do you manage that added kind of duty?
Well, you've got to have great communication with your owner. At the end of the day, it's the owner's team. He's the guy that's paying everybody. It's his vision, and you've got to try to execute the best that you can. Now, all owners handle it differently. Some of them just hire people, and we want you to go do the job, and if you don't do it well enough, we'll change. But there's other people who, whether it's Jerry Jones in football, guys like that, who want to be involved on a daily basis. So it's all different. I don't know Glenn Taylor. I don't know how much he's involved on a day-to-day basis, but certainly if he tells Tom that it has to be different than what Tom wants, Tom doesn't have a choice in that regard. He's got to go with the owner.
I mean, my favorite line in all of this from someone who held both of those jobs is Bill Parcells, who always says, you want me to cook the meal, you better let me buy the groceries. And I think that in this particular Jimmy Butler situation, we're seeing that more than anything, because this is what THIBS wanted, right? When he was in Chicago, clearly management made some decisions he didn't like with personnel, and then he was expected to go out on the floor and win with them, and those clashes were well documented. In this case, if he hadn't held both roles, it is possible that a president might have gotten those requests from Jimmy Butler that Jimmy is saying came 4 days after the season, and made a personnel move that THIBS, the coach, who clearly wants Butler on his team, on that bench during the year, wouldn't have liked, and would have felt like the rug would have been pulled out from under him because he worked so hard to get Jimmy there. So this, to me, is sort of the exact situation THIBS wanted when he said he needed both of those roles.
Well, true. And he's clearly puts a high value on Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler was second in the league last year in minutes played per game, only behind LeBron. He wants him on the floor. That doesn't mean to me that THIBS will not deal him, but he holds him in high regard, which means he wants a lot in return. He doesn't have a deal right now that he feels would work. He knows there's some chemistry issues. If he had a deal where he thought he was getting comparable value for their team, either now or in the future, he'd make the deal. This idea that Tom Thibodeau refuses to make a move on Jimmy Butler, I'm not buying that. People are listening to the owner,
Right.
who's pressing for a deal and thinking they can get in and get a one-sided deal against the Timberwolves, and Tom Thibodeau and Scott Layden are holding out against that.
Counterpoint. If Tibbs had been more proactive earlier in the summer on that front, maybe the deals wouldn't be as one-sided. The idea that, and again, that's the gift and the curse. The gift is, hey, give me some time, I can fix this. And maybe he can, or maybe he could have. But in a regular situation, that's why I always preach separation of church and state. Look, I get it. It stinks that we have to give up Jimmy, and it stinks that we operate in a league where fair value for trading a star, those days are long gone. But the earlier you get behind it, the better your chances, because once it gets out, and once all of this happens, your leverage drops, and you get the type of deals that you're talking about, where Tibbs like, I can't work with this, not in the short term and not even in the long term. That's a function of we took so long to get to this point where we're finally serious about entertaining that conversation.
Well, and it's also a function, though, of Jimmy making this thing public.
Oh, yeah.
Which I didn't understand from his point of view. If you want the trade, you've made your request to management, you know it's going to be harder for them to trade you and get value. He knows Tom Thibodeau respects him as a player and is going to want value in return. And when it's known that he wants out, it's harder to get that value, so he knows it's going to be hard.
I have no problem with him making it public after spending a few months quietly trying to see him manage the situation and it not happening. At some point, he feels like he had to advocate for his own interests, and it certainly seems like Tibbs was messaging him, yeah. And we heard in that interview him saying, hey, you're telling me one thing and you're doing another. So even if he was just hearing, yeah, we'll look into it, or yeah, it's all going to be fine, he clearly felt built up over time. You're saying one thing, you're not doing it with the contract. You're saying one thing about me being with this team, you're not doing it trying to get me traded. I need to speak publicly. I'm always okay with that.
Do we know that? Do we know that Tom wasn't trying to make a deal? We just know a deal wasn't made. That's all we know.
Jimmy says that Tibbs was communicating to him he wanted him still in Minnesota.
Well, sure, but again, there's no one in this league untradable. People always say that. You'll hear that all the time in deals. Oh, this guy's untouchable. That's a bunch of BS. There's no one untouchable. Not Kevin Durant, not LeBron James, not anybody. It's a matter of what the price it takes to come back. So again, I don't buy the fact that Tom wants him on the team. Compared to what? What is the deal that would make him go the other way? We don't know that those deals haven't been discussed. We just know one hasn't been made. And this idea that Tom Thibodeau owes it to Jimmy Butler and owes it to the other teams to make a deal he doesn't seem as favorable, that's crazy.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I do too, but I think we know that aggression in deal making is a sliding scale. It's not just deal was made or deal wasn't made. It's, am I working the phones? Am I putting him out there, or am I kind of taking a passive approach? What we talked about with what Jimmy did, we had an example of this a few years ago with Goran Dragic. Same thing. Good dude, great locker room guy, very coachable, always wants the right thing. He was in a situation where he went from All-NBA to the next year they had 3 point guards. They're asking him to play small forward, and he keeps saying, guys, this isn't going to work. We need to make a change. We'll do something going with. And they're just saying that stuff because that's the truth. That's what teams do sometimes. He'll get over it. We'll get over this. We'll get on a hot streak and it'll get fixed. And finally, Goran did something that burnt him to his soul. To this day, he regrets it, even though he got what he wanted. He went out there and he did what Jimmy did. He got in front of the cameras and said, this team lies to me. I can't trust these people. I want out. And 3 days later, he's in a Miami Heat uniform. Players do this because they feel like if I'm the nice guy, you don't care. So the only way I can get you to care is to be an absolute jerk. I have an analogy that I used backstage. I'm not going to use it because it's not fit for America. But it basically is like when you're dating someone and you don't want to be with them anymore and they're still trying to make it work. And at some point you have to make it clear to them, this will never, ever, ever work. And some of the things you say might be awful in order to get that through their head. But that's sometimes the only tack you have.
Well, and the other important thing to remember here is that the interests of the player and the interests of the team do not always align. And it is, as you point out, Tom's job to work in the best interest of the team. It is Jimmy's job to work in the best interest of his career, because that is a diminished. He's only going to get older. He's only going to get more, all of this stuff. His playing time is sacred. His prime is sacred. It's his job to advocate for himself. You're absolutely right, though. It's Tom's job to advocate for him.
And I have no problem with the player advocating for himself. I don't. I think what a lot of people have done, though, opposing teams, right, is they think now they've got the leverage, and they're not getting deals that Tom and Scott think are legitimate deals. And right now, they're holding the line, and they're saying, no, we're not going to sell you for 10 cents on the dollar, just because you want to be gone and some other team thinks they have leverage on us. We're not going to do that.
And so far, at least, Glenn Taylor has not forced them to make those deals. So that's kind of where that leverage is sitting.
The pressure point.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see as the season goes on. Look, does Jimmy's presence become so disruptive there that Tibbs changes his mind, that having him there isn't a good thing? Do the offers get worse because as time goes by, people are going to only have him for less because there's free agency the next summer? Or as time goes by, as we get toward the trade deadline, is there a team like Houston that suddenly feels, you know what, we're seeing something. We could beat the Warriors this year. We want to add Jimmy Butler. We'll pay the higher price. We'll have to see. Things are going to be fluid and can be changed. I'm okay with each side advocating for themselves because I don't love the illusion, oh, we're all in it together and we have the same ideas. I know you have to say that to be a functioning team on the court, but as DeMar DeRozan found out this summer,
I was waiting for you to make a Toronto reference.
No, by the way, players know this. Players know it's a business. Players are so insulted when someone says, it's a business, young man. They know it's a business, but they're told, hey, take the discount, stay home, do whatever. And I think it's better if everyone in their interest knows, hey, the team is going to do what it can to get its, and the player should do what it wants to get his. I'm sorry, it's true.
Be honest.
Right?
It is true, and it's the way it should be.
It is, right? Everyone's a grown-up here. The players are grown-up. Everybody gets it. Before we go to break, look, we've got to talk about a really great man in this league. I had the pleasure of meeting him a bunch of times when I was covering the Bulls as a college student, and he was as classy to me as a 20-year-old just trying to figure out the NBA as he was to every player he worked with. The legendary NBA coach Tex Winter, who passed away on Wednesday at the age of 96. He's most well known as the pioneer of the triangle offense that helped produce 11 NBA titles with the Bulls and Lakers under head coach Phil Jackson. Tex inducted into the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame in 2011. Michael Jordan issued the following statement, quote, I learned so much from Coach Winter. He was a pioneer, a true student of the game. His triangle offense was a huge part of our 6 championships with the Bulls. I was lucky to play for him. My condolences to his family. And our own Scottie Pippen posting a thread on Twitter with the following, Tex Winter was my biggest critic. He was also my biggest fan. A few words about the legendary coach who lived his 96 years as well as anyone could have. Tex was a man of fundamentals, ball movement, and player movement equals success. It was never about the individual. Without Tex, we may have never won a title. He taught us how to slice and dice our opponents on the offensive end. We had the GOAT, but it was Tex's knowledge and triangle offense that helped us shred defenses. Scottie and his former Bulls teammate B.J. Armstrong are scheduled to be here on set with us tomorrow, so we will talk about Tex a little bit more then. He deserves all of that praise. Smiles, as you remember, what a great guy he was. He had a cutting sense of humor, and also our deepest condolences as well to the entire Winter family.